Hey nerds, I'm Martha, aka Read by a Redhead, and I thought I'd start this off by introducing myself. So many readers have these books that made us, books that inspired us, that made us the readers we are today. I thought I would do kind of the opposite, books that show who I am in different ways, different aspects of me and who I am. So first things first, my name, Martha. I'm cheating a little bit with this one, and I'm going with Lucy Powrie's Read with Pride, the sequel to the Paper and Heart Society. And the reason I'm cheating is it isn't a character. There isn't a character called Martha. There is actually me. I'm in it. So in the acknowledgements, Lucy was really lovely and put in about booksellers and librarians, and she specifically mentioned Martha and everyone at Waterstones Newcastle, and it's the first time I have ever been mentioned in acknowledgements. Had a little bit of a cry, so yeah, I'm cheating and using this for my name. Second, where did I grow up? Where am I from? Now for this I've had to kind of fudge a little bit because I'm from Sunderland, but I do not own a book set in Sunderland, and I don't think I really want to. So I've gone with Loveless by Oseman because this is set in Durham, and I went to school in Durham for 7 years, so the whole setting of this book felt like home to me. So that's the closest I have for that one. Following from where did I grow up, where do I live now? And this is very new for me and very exciting, but I live in Edinburgh. So I've chosen City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. In this, at the beginning, we have Cassie's map of Edinburgh, Scotland, and I have actually already visited most of the places on this map just by visiting Edinburgh, but now I live here, and that's really exciting. Next is probably, it's not controversial, but it's a bit of a topic at the moment because of screw-ups in society to do with schools, but the school I went to, and the closest I have that represents that is Tradition by Brendan Kiely. Yes, I went to a private school, quite different from the one in here, but really similar in other senses. It was horrendously sexist, it was horrendously nepotistic, and also, like one of the main characters in this, I was a scholarship kid. I fought my way into that school, and I'm not going to get into the whole debate about private and state schools, but yes, I did. I went to a private school, and it was kind of as horrendous as this one shows it to be. Then on to my job. Now, with everything going on, I do still have my job, but it is back in Newcastle, and I am furloughed in the tiny hope I get a transfer to Edinburgh. But regardless, right now I am still a bookseller, and the closest I could find to a bookseller was a book set in a bookshop. So I've gone with Pages & Co by Anna James. Yes, I am a horrible human being and took the dust jacket off, but look at it. It's so pretty. And also, I feel this properly fits the brief for me being a bookseller based at Waterstones in Newcastle, because when Anna James came to do some signings for the book, she revealed to me that the Waterstones in Newcastle is the bookshop that inspired the feelings that Pages & Co is meant to give you in here. It isn't the one that inspired how it looks or any of that, but it's the one that the nostalgia for our bookshop is the nostalgia she wanted you to get out of Pages & Co, and I find that amazing. And I kind of wish I worked at Pages & Co instead, but I do love my bookshop, and kind of gutted I'm still not back. So that's kind of the boring bits of my life, my name, where I've lived, what I do. Now on to the more interesting bits and slightly more questionable bits. So first off, friends. And for this, I struggle quite a bit finding a book that I relate to friendship-wise, because most books in YA and middle grade, which is what I predominantly read, feature the childhood best friend. And I hate this. I think it's actually quite a dangerous trope for every single book to fall into, because for so many people, that's just not realistic. Like, I do not have that childhood best friend. I didn't have a best friend from really young that I stuck with schools and growing up. I made my first very good, awesome, proper friends at like 18, 19, and I'm not ashamed of that, but I think books make you feel a bit bad about it. However, I have still found a book that kind of answers this, which is Boy Queen by George Lester. So this is quite a recent read for me, and the reason I say this works is that this features a main trio friendship, and my best friends are a guy and a girl, and the three of us, we are best friends. It isn't like three's a crowd, there's a third wheel. That's not how we work. We work really well as separate friends in different scenarios. We work really well as a trio. We are nerdy as hell and call ourselves Parabatry. It's just who we are, and I loved how in Boy Queen it showed that you can have a trio friendship and it still works, and each person in the friendship is allowed other friends, but you can have that core three and nobody feels left out. So that's the closest I have to my friends. And moving on from friends is usually when you'd move on to relationships, but my book for what's my relationship like is probably not the happiest, but I go with Places I've Cried in Public by Holly Bourne. Now, I'm not currently in a relationship, I'm currently single and much, much happier for it, but at 18, so a few years ago, I was in a relationship very similar to the one portrayed in this book. And in fact, it felt like this book had been written about me. It's wonderful and fantastic and heartbreaking. And basically, it's an emotionally abusive relationship that has some of the elements of abuse within it. And it very much is the same story as the story I went through at 18. And because of that relationship, it can cause some problems. And I've just learned that I'm much happier single. Speaking of relationships, what's my sexuality? Well, as a lot of people probably know, I'm bi as hell. And I am the stereotypical chaotic bi. Quite happy with it. So for this one, I have gone with the most chaotic bis I know. The whole gang and the whole town of Four Paths from Devouring. This is probably the most bisexual book I have ever read. Like, every other character is bi. Two of the mums are bi. It's amazing, and the rep in it is just perfect. So yeah, so my sexuality, bi as Four Paths. And then the last couple are kind of a little bit heavier topics, but things I feel like if you're going to watch me, you should probably be not aware of, but it's part of who I am. And if I'm talking about who I am, I can't leave these out. So first off, mental health. Like many of us, I have an array of mental health issues and parts that I have to deal with. And the kind of top two books I have that really reflect those elements within me are Turtles All the Way Down by John Green and Fangirl by Rowell. So I've gone to some classic authors here, but for really specific reasons. So Turtles All the Way Down actually deals with a main character with OCD, and I don't have OCD, but I do have compulsive tendencies, and for years it was a big question of whether it was OCD for me. It wasn't. I'll move on to what it is in a minute. But within Turtles All the Way Down, we deal with the main character's thought spirals and her panic spirals, and that's why you have the whole spiral on the front cover. And that, for me, is why this book is in this list. It truly reflects the way my anxiety spirals and the way my panic can just keep pulling me down without any control of how to stop it. So yeah, Turtles All the Way Down is one. And the second one, a bit of a bookish OG for YA, is Fangirl by Rowell. This was the first book I packed when I moved to university. My copy is quite old and a bit decrepit, but Kath's anxiety was just perfect. And it really, to me, it reflected not only that it's social anxiety, but it's subtle anxiety, like nobody's told her how to go to the cafeteria, so she just won't go. That is why Kath, to me, fully reflects me and the ways in which my anxiety can affect me. So I mentioned how I didn't have OCD, but I have compulsive tendencies, and that is because it turned out I am autistic. Took me till 18, 19 to figure it out, till 20, 21 to get diagnosed. It's a long process. But since figuring it out, even before getting the official diagnosis, I started to find myself in characters in books, and actually that relief of finding myself is kind of what inspired me to put this list together, because finding who you are represented in a book can be such a wonderful feeling. So for autism, I have two main ones I want to talk about, and one is a bit of an odd one. So Cassandra Clare, the Dark Artificers series. And the reason I put this here is because one of the main characters, Ty Blackthorne, is autistic. And it is canonical, it is proven in Lord of Shadows, the sequel to this, that it is autism. But in the first book, nobody has a word for it. Ty is just different. Ty acts the way he does, and there are quite a lot of, not quite debates, but issues in the book where outsiders want to question it, want to stop him from wearing his headphones, from acting the way he does. And his brother and his siblings kind of defend him. They're like, no, that is how Ty is. And that to me is kind of my early journey with my autism. That was me as very early autistic, not having a clue what was up with me, but my family just going, that's how Martha is. And me saying to myself, oh, that's just how I am, I'm just different. And I adored the representation in this book for autism. I got to meet Cassandra Clare and freely admit, I cried on her talking about how much Ty Blackthorne meant to me. So I couldn't not include this here. But I did move on, I did get a diagnosis, and that level of understanding actually quite early on led me to read State of Grace by Rachael Lucas. And I adore this book. It deals with female autism, which in its own is so rare. I actually have a couple of books on my TBR that are female autistic own voices like this, but I'm a bit scared to read them because I know I'm going to cry. But this was the first one I read, and just the tagline on the back is so important. It says, sometimes I feel like everyone else was handed a copy of the rules for life and mine got lost. And that was me, especially as a teenager, not knowing, questioning whether I was autistic, not having a clue, not wanting to speak to people and say there was something wrong with me, because it isn't anything wrong, it's just different. And this book to me broke me in such the best ways possible. It showed me that I'm not alone, I'm not the only one, and I cannot thank this book and Rachael Lucas enough for what it did for me and what I hope it does for other autistic girls, especially teenagers who want to figure themselves out, because it's like a comfort blanket being amongst others who understand you. So yeah, good female autistic rep. So technically those are kind of all the parts of who am I that I wanted to answer, but I have one honourable mention book. And that's because I could have used it for multiple prompts in this video, but I couldn't pin it down to one, so I thought I'd whack it in at the end on its own because it deserves it. And that is Queens of Geek by Jen Wilde. Now this book follows two main characters, one of which is bisexual. Thank you very much. Tick. The other of which is female and autistic, and tick. And suffers from anxiety. Tick. And is a right nerd. Absolute full rounder tick. I adored this. When I first bought it, I read it in one sitting. I ended up highlighting parts of it, which I hardly ever do in books I'm not studying, but it meant that much to me, and it spoke to parts of me I didn't know needed that. So that is who am I? I hope this has kind of answered the main questions about me that you may wonder if you're going to be watching. If there's any other things about me you'd like me to answer but in book form, please pop them down in the comments, because I'd quite happily do a second part to this video. It was really fun putting it together and remembering reading these books and feeling the connections to the characters that I did. I'd also love to know what books are about you. What books answer the question, who are you? Because I think it's such a valued part of reading, and I think it'd be really fun to open the discussion a bit more. But Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this and are looking forward to a bit more bookish content from me, please subscribe. Like, as I say, join me down in the comments. I really want to talk to you guys, and I'll see you soon in a new video.